Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Easy Mini Painting with me, Christopher Ridge. And we are finishing up the Godzilla Tokyo Clash board game. We are finishing with Mothra, the big winged creature herself here. The biggest thing with her is just that she's kind of daunting. She's just kind of a large miniature, and it just requires a lot of layers and a lot of patience and a lot of just time. Not terribly difficult, but we will be doing a little bit more stuff from the ground up compared to the previous miniatures. So without any further ado, let's get started on it. So the very first thing that I did was I started with a solid layer of matte black. And that is just going to serve as a decent little base coat, and it's also just going to help kind of knock out some of the smaller black details, like with the, because you gotta get some stuff on the wings, you gotta get some stuff on the body and the head and everywhere, so I think it's going to be easier to just go over her completely with a layer of matte black. Then we're going to take out some uniform gray, and we're going to use this to dry brush basically the body and some other parts. So go ahead and take out a dry brush here and do what you'd normally do with dry brushing, which is that you get a little bit of paint onto your brush and you wipe off most of it. If you don't have an actual dry brush, not a huge deal, just try to get a, sort of thick, bristled brush that's got kind of a flat edge to it that'll just kind of help you get the dry brushing that you're looking for. And then what we're going to do is we're going to just paint over her whole abdomen, basically, the underside of her belly. Now, one thing that you will probably find that is slightly problematic with this miniature is the fact that she has no base. It's got this plastic base on it. Now, I would say that when you are doing your base coat of black, just make sure to get into the hole that's underneath the abdomen there, because if you leave it unpainted, you can actually kind of see it through there already. I did the best that I could, but you're going to get some of the orange that was the original plastic color of the miniature showing through it, and we don't necessarily want that. But a little something like that, and then just make sure to be careful. Try not to paint the actual base itself. That's the thing that's kind of tricky about this miniature, is that it's kind of hard to hold her at any angle that isn't, holding on to the miniature itself. Because you can hold on to her like this, you can hold on to her, however you want. But then you just run the risk of sort of rubbing off the paint the more you hold it, and the more friction is applied to the miniature. So just kind of be careful. If you can, try to hold it by the base. But if you're also just careful, you can probably just hold it like this, as long as you don't, rub your fingers on it too thick or anything like that. We're also going to do that to do the whole middle part of her abdomen, just everything top to bottom. And then we're also going to get sort of the fuzzy part of the wings themselves. This miniature is pretty decent in that it's got the sort of texture of the fuzz, the soft kind of fur already sculpted into it. So that's nice. You don't need to worry about, getting some sort of texture on there yourself. If you basically just do a dry brushing technique, you'll be in good hands. Just a little something like that, and that just brings out a little bit more sort of lighting, so to speak, for her, and that's kind of what you want. And then you want to just get the front of her face, and that will kind of bring out the sort of face that she has as well. When you are going over the face, just make sure to go down the front of her face instead of side to side, because those, I don't know what the word is, teeth? I don't know. You want those to show up, and if you go side to side, then you might get some paint in between the teeth, and you don't want that. You just want the high points to stand out. Alright, and then that's pretty much it for the dry brushing, but then we are going to use it to apply a much more even coat across some other points. You can use any type of brush that you really prefer. So we're going to start with the top of her abdomen. That is basically starting with the side. Just kind of choose a point that looks best for you, and just kind of do everything above that. Oh, and the other thing, you know what? Shoot, I'm rushing myself, forgetting. Okay, so I'm using one particular image as a reference that I'm kind of looking at my computer for while I'm doing this. The problem is it doesn't show the back of her very well here. So I am looking at that thinking, okay, what do I need to do? And then I'll see everything on that image and think, okay, cool, move on to the next step. But I forgot to do dry brushing on the back of the wings here, so I'm going to do that really quickly. Okay, tell you what, I'll just use this same brush here that I was using, and I'll just do a quick little dry brushing thing on the back here. There we go, that just kind of gets that sort of coloration there. That's what we're looking for. All right, so that's it for that. And then we'll also get the top side of the middle part of her abdomen as well. Well, I guess, so this bottom part is probably her abdomen, and this middle part is probably her body, so I'll refer to it as such like that. So we're going to do the top half of her body, in the same way that we did the top half of her abdomen. And then we are going to do everything surrounding her eye, basically. You can go over her eye a little bit, not a huge deal. If you were kind of a stickler for details, you could be a little bit more worried about it, but I wouldn't. I think you'll be just fine. Because we're going to go over the eye later on anyway. Then we'll also get her antennas. All right, and now we'll get kind of a finicky part, but basically just a little bit past where the fuzz really begins. You'll start to do a solid just layer of gray. And then just a little bit beyond. Basically, you can kind of see where the sort of thick fur ends, all the way through to where the thin fur ends. Go ahead and just do a solid layer of white. Well, gray, and then we're going to do some white over this. You'll see what I mean. Like so, you don't need to go completely evenly against, the texture like that, but you can if you want. It's just kind of whatever you prefer. There we go, a little something like that, and then we'll do the same thing on the other side. There we go, a little something like that. And then that's going to be it for all of the gray, so I'm going to rinse off my brush completely. Alright, now I want for that gray to be completely dry before I do anything else, so what I'll do is I'll move on to some electric blue and we'll just get those eyes really quickly. Alright, nothing special, just take any sort of brush. Luckily the eyes are pretty big here, so you don't need to worry about minute details or anything. You're just going to paint the entirety of each big eye. There we go. So now we've just got some blue eyes on there. Alright, and then as long as everything is all dry, you can move on to the next step, which is some matte white. And then we're going to use that to dry brush over all of the solid gray parts that we just did, as well as the eyes themselves. Alright, so I'll take out my dry brush here and do the same thing that we did with dry brushing with the gray color. We'll just wipe off most of it. There we go, that adds a little bit of sort of depth and texture and color to that part as well. We're also going to do the backs of the abdomen and the body. You get a little bit of this white onto, like the black and everything that you just did. Not a huge deal, just kind of do your best. Don't stress about it. And then we're also going to do over, well, I'll wait until we make sure that the eyes are totally dry as well. Because, yeah, it doesn't hurt to just go over the whole face basically all at once, and you'll get over the eyes as well, and that will also give a little bit of highlight and color variety to the eyes. Alright, and then yeah, as long as the eyes are totally dry, which it kind of looks like they are here, you can go ahead and dry brush the face and the eye. And the antennas as well, because we want those to be basically totally white, but we want to leave just a little bit of gray underneath for some color depth and variety. Dry brushing almost exclusively for Mothra works really well too, because when you use dry brushing, you get kind of a sort of a soft, fuzzy look for everything, and I feel like that's just sort of thematically appropriate for a large moth creature. Look at that, isn't that cool? Already she looks pretty neat. I think that looks pretty cool, if I don't say so myself. And then that is it for all of the white that we're going to do. So we'll move on. I'm gonna rinse off my dry brush. All right, and now we're gonna be moving on to our color. So I'm gonna take out some lava orange, and then we're gonna be doing quite a bit of stuff with this lava orange. Why don't we start with the wings actually, because that's probably going to be a little bit easier. So it looks like the first layer of lines coming away from the black fuzz is going to be white, so we'll leave a little bit there, but then we'll just kind of go around the whole edge and just try to create it as smoothly and as flat as possible. One layer, and then we'll just do another layer kind of like this. So what you're basically going to have are sort of like 2 layers of orange and then 3 layers of this sort of white gray. That's kind of what we're going for. There we go, kind of like that. Yeah, that's all that you really need to do there. You don't need to do anything too fancy, and then we'll do the same thing on the other side. There you go, and it doesn't have to be perfect there, so like you can kind of see my layering is just a little bit, maybe a little bit wonky, but don't worry about it, just do the best that you can, and really anything that you do, as long as you take your time, is going to look pretty darn good. So then we'll do the same thing on the back of the wings. Okay, so yeah, now we're getting the sort of start of her wings there. I think that her wings look pretty good. All right, and then we're going to do the same thing with the back of her abdomen and her body. Or rather, we're going to do a similar thing. So we're going to do sort of like stripes that go across the whole back of her abdomen. And they don't go all the way from, you know, black end to black end. There's quite a bit of white remaining, white or gray or whatever you want to do. But just kind of start with the bottom and then just kind of do some stripes across the top that just go from one side to the other but don't quite reach the actual black fuzz. Leave that gray, leave that textured, you know, gray and white color that you've got on there. There we go. And then that sort of gets the abdomen there. We're going to do a little bit with the body as well. Just a couple of lines here, I think. And the same thing on the other side. All right, and now the slightly trickier part, we're going to get the sort of side of her face surrounding where the white was that you did. Go ahead and let's just paint the whole, basically the entirety of her head. Well, I know that she's got a little bit of a black stripe in between her eyes and her white fuzz. So just kind of start there on the top of her head and then backward. Yeah, so that black, basically like leave a line of black that starts just above her antennas. And then just cover the rest of her body, of the rest of her head rather, in orange like this, and I think that will be a-okay. There we go, and you can kind of leave the underside of her head there black. I think that that'll be fine. There we go. And then that kind of gets her head and her body. All right, that's basically it for the body. We're going to be doing some more yellow stuff with her, like her arms, like basically her limbs. I don't know the clinical term for an insect's limbs, but I assume it's just limbs? Appendages? I don't know, whatever, doesn't matter. All right, and now the next big thing that we're going to do is going to be the actual wings themselves. Now, the bottom layer of wings, these 2 bottom wings, are mostly orange, while these 2 top wings are mostly yellow. So we'll do just these bottom wings. Now, the biggest thing that I thought was going to be the most challenging aspect of this miniature was going to be the pattern on the wings. But then when I looked at it, I realized that the pattern is already basically molded into the miniature, so you don't even need to worry about that. That's going to be the scariest thing about Mothra, and since they took care of that for you, don't even worry about it. So we're going to be doing all of the raised points, we're going to leave black, but all of the low points we're going to do orange. Now, if you want another way that you can do this is you can basically just go over the entirety of the wings, just go over the whole thing all at once, you know, up to the, you know, the stripes and the patterns that we've already done. Basically just, you know, the ends of the wings and on. You could just do it all, you know, orange like this. And then you can just go over those high points with black later on. It's kind of up to you. You know, whatever you think is going to be more time efficient for yourself, just kind of do that. But you know what? I think that doing this kind of thing where you're kind of going around a pattern is a good way to get some practice in doing just sort of fine, not minute, but just some like detail work. Doing steady things. It's up to you if you want to, like I said, just go over the entirety of the wings and then just go over the black parts with black again later on. It's up to you. But I'm going to do this for the sake of getting some practice in. Alright, I think that I am just going to use editing trickery to just jump ahead here. Alright, and that is how that should look by the time you're done. Like I said, I kind of had to just edit through that just because it was getting annoying to paint that with my recording device right in front of me the whole time. It was just a little bit more time consuming than I wanted it to be, so I just skipped ahead. Now, we've really only got one more major step to do, and that's that we're going to take out some Daemonic Yellow, and then we're going to get the wings and the legs. And then we're done. You can use any brush that you like. I'll go ahead and just use another one of these, just kind of like little no-name brushes right here. And I'm going to go over the entirety of the legs and arms. Alright, there you go. So now you've just got Mothra's legs right there. And then that is, like I said, pretty much it in terms of all of the details and the body details and that kind of thing. Now, one thing that I was thinking about earlier, and I did sort of mention it, but I will just leave it for now. If you want to, you can kind of make those fangs that she has a little bit more accentuated, I guess you could say, and you could just take some solid white and put it onto there. And if you want, like, I don't know, I feel like the yellow would be a little bit too bright, and it would just look kind of weird with yellow limbs right next to it, but you could do, yellow for the fangs as well. Just kind of whatever you prefer, whatever sort of artistic liberties you want to take. Alright, and then for the wings, this is going to be the last big step and the last big time-consuming thing. You're just going to go over all of the raised points with yellow. Now, this is a little bit different from how we did the bottom wings. With the bottom wings, you did all of the low points orange, and you kept the high points black. We're doing the opposite here. We're doing the high points yellow and the low points black. But this is just going to be another time-consuming thing. Now, tell you what, I'm gonna do this. I am actually going to do this because I think that it might actually be a more time-efficient thing to do. I'll just take out a big fat brush here, just some big brush, and we'll just go over the entirety of the wings, loosely. And then we'll just take some black paint and go over it afterward, because if you are doing... The one bad thing about doing base coats of black or, really dark base coats and then doing light colors over it is that you'll generally need to do multiple layers, because that dark, color underneath is just so dark. And sometimes when you need to do multiple layers like that, it's just a little bit more time efficient to just not worry about details and just go over everything with a thick layer like this, and then go over it all with black. Or, go over the black points with black again. Be careful when you're going underneath the front wing there. You want to try not to get any yellow onto the orange that you already did. Minor thing, but just be aware of it. Alright, and then, so now I'll just go over basically the lower points with the black paint again. Again, this is sort of a technique that you can do if you're not, if you don't want to be as precise and you want to be a little bit faster, then you can go ahead and do this. It's probably going to be a little bit easier, a little bit faster. But again, if you want to get some practice in with, detail work and that kind of thing, you can do what I was talking about before I, cut away to the orange wings here. Alright, so now I'm going to take out some matte black again, and then we're just going to touch up the details on those wings. And, like I was saying earlier too, the big reason why you can do this in the first place is because the pattern on the wings is already raised. It's already sculpted onto the miniature. If you had to do this by hand, it would probably be a little bit more of a pain in the neck, but because it's just part of the sculpt, it's a lot easier. There we go, a little something like that, and that way you just get the wing pattern nice and crisp and smooth there. With the wings, if you just do solid layers like this, you just do solid colors, they might look a little bit more sort of like cartoony, or I don't know, they're way more defined, but I think that goes pretty well against the sort of, you know, soft, clothy look of all the dry brushing that we did for the core of Mothra. So, yeah, after that, we're going to apply our layer of matte varnish, which is going to be its own sort of step. We'll get to that in a minute. Alright, and then that'll do it. And like I said, that method might just be a little bit less time-consuming for you. I'm trying to think, like, yeah, that's it. That's really all that I want to do. The last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a layer of matte varnish. If you've seen the previous videos, then you'll know what that is, so I won't really bother you with that. But yeah, layer of matte varnish, and then you're all done. Alright, well there you go everybody. That, I think at least, is Mothra from Godzilla Tokyo Clash. And I think that she turned out pretty neat. I think that she's pretty cool looking. She's got that nice sort of soft, fuzzy, moth-like features, but we've also got the big, bright yellow and orange wings to go with her. So I think that will about do it. And that is it for the Godzilla Tokyo Clash board game, at least in terms of the kaiju. I think I'll go ahead and paint the city pieces. At some point, I'll do that for the next video. That's going to be much easier. Yeah, the reason why this one took me so long is just because Mothra was so time-consuming and kind of daunting, and the biggest thing is just taking the plunge, you know, with her. Just getting her done and getting started on it, and just having a plan and going for it. So that's it. If you liked the video, go ahead and throw it a like. If you want to see the terrain pieces, you know, the building tiles painted on the board game, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. And at some point, I'll figure out what to post for the next series of videos, but we'll just kind of play it by ear. We'll see as we go. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I won't take up any more of your time, and you have yourselves a good night. Thanks. Bye.